In this video, we'll discuss a few uses for the auto size tool in MemorialDESIGNER. I had this emailed to me to digitize, and the file itself is 7.8 inches wide at 72 dpi. However, they want to have the heart end up being 8 inches wide when it sandblasts. So one of the things that you can do is take a freehand line and come over and click on one extent and then click on the other. And I also notice that this is rotated just a tad bit, so the way that I'm going to make my line will end up we'll end up straightening that out. So I went from there to there, and as you can see, it's now only 3.5 inches. So you take the pick tool, shift select whatever's behind it. So now I've got both of those objects selected. So I was holding down shift while clicking on the bitmap. And then I'll come up and run the auto size function, or you can just hit the apostrophe on the keyboard. So you click on that and it pops up your default sizes. Yours might be different than mine, but I'll go ahead and click 8 inches. The delete line option is going to delete that line that I created. I don't want it anymore. Straighten is going to allow me to straighten it along that line. If I do horizontally, then it's going to straighten it this way. If I do vertically, it would rotate it to go up and down. The way that you create the line actually makes a difference. So if I were to have created the line from right to left instead, it would actually flip it upside down, which is not what I want. So I started from left to right, and I'll just go ahead and hit apply. And what that does is it resizes my image. I'll hit F4 on the keyboard so I can zoom out to everything. My entire image is now 19 inches, but the piece that I want to draw is actually only 8 inches now. You can also see that it straightened it out so that my heart now is straighter than it was. So now that that's done, I can go ahead and start drawing over the top of it. This would be pretty boring to watch and isn't really necessary for this video, so instead I'll just speed this up about 100 times faster than what I would normally be drawing at. So one really neat feature of CorelDRAW is that you can go up to Tools, go to Options. Under the toolbox, you click on Zoom Pan Tool, and then you click Calibrate Rulers. What that does is it allows you to set a physical ruler down on top of your monitor, and then you come over and adjust your resolution. So let's say your monitor was actually 100 pixels per inch. You would just line it up so that these lines from 6 to 7, 7 to 8, those line up with your actual ruler that you've put on top of the monitor. Mine was 281.5. So when I am zoomed in at 100%, then this will actually show up life size on my screen. And so I can just visually see how thick my lines are and how thick they're going to be in real life. That tells me, if they're going to be too thick or too thin, but it's a good visual indicator here of how it's going to really look in real life. I sandblasted myself, and so I know, pretty much what's going to stay and what's going to not stay, what's going to end up blowing loose. So when I'm zoomed into 100%, then I can see that and work my way around my design and see what it's going to look like. The next thing that I'll show is if we have a photo of an actual headstone or something like that, and we want to take it to life size. If I had measured along this joint and knew that this was 36 inches wide, even though clicking on the picture it's only 13 inches wide. So if I take my freehand tool again and just click a line, so I'm going to click here, move my mouse over, and then click here, so that I've now got a line that goes along that joint. I can select it with the pick tool, hold down shift, click on the stone, run auto size, and I'll say this is 36 inches wide. Once again, I want to straighten it along that horizontal axis and click apply. So that will go ahead and resize it and straighten it for me as well. Now sometimes your photos aren't quite straight on, or they're at a little bit of a slant, it can't account for that sort of stuff. All it can do is rotate. But one thing that you can do is, let's say you wanted to make sure that you were straight, along here. So I could go from here to here and draw a line that goes all the way across that. And just in case that wasn't exactly straight, I could do the same thing, hold down Shift, click on it, do auto size again, and this time instead of doing 24 inches I'll just do 0 inches and straighten, and that way it's going to straighten it, but it's not going to resize it at all. So there's the two different options there of resizing or just straightening. So now that I've done that, I can go and go over the top of this and duplicate it. A third thing that you can do is, let's say you had a design that was already done up, but if we were to come and measure in here, I'll just click with my freehand again from here to here, and that says that it's 0.078 inches. I like to have my line thicknesses at 0.09 inches usually, and so there is a tool, Blastable, that will, this one here, Blastable, that can help account for that and actually thicken up those lines. But instead of just thickening the lines, what I want to do on this one is resize it so that those lines then become the right thickness. Because I like the way that it looks, it's just not quite the size that I want it to be, so that those thicknesses are correct. So I'll actually do it both ways here. I'll make a duplicate, and this one you have to combine if you're going to do Blastable. So I'll remake my reference line because I had deleted it earlier. I'm going to Shift select my frogs, and then I'm just going to hit Blastable, and we'll see what happens here. So what that does is it actually thickens up all of the lines, and then I'm going to use Knockout again to knock out these pieces that need to show through to the polish. So there's that option, or the other option is to use auto size. Now with auto size, we've actually, with this particular design, we've got two different pieces. So we've got the frosted area, and then we've got the outline. So because there's two different pieces, we need to select both of those and group them together first, so that as we resize it, it's going to resize the entire group. In the two previous things that we showed, it was bitmaps. You don't have to do a bitmap, you can resize vectors, but if you're doing multiple vectors or multiple pieces, you have to make sure that they're groups. The same thing applies for bitmaps. So once again, I'll go ahead and recreate my line. But this time when I Shift select, I'm going to run auto size instead. I'm going to delete the line, but I'm not going to straighten, and I'm just going to resize to 0.09 inches and hit apply. So what that did is it actually made the design larger, so that now my line thickness is 0.09 inches. Two different ways of doing it, two different results, but you can see, depending on what you want to do, you've got that functionality. Another way to use auto size is to actually have a ruler or some sort of real-life reference in your photo, which makes it really easy. So I can zoom in here, and we can see on our ruler here our life-size measurement. So if I were to click right here at the beginning, and then let's say click again here at 30 inches. Oops, I'm using the polyline tool this time, so I had to double click, and I'll double click there to erase that. But we can move this to the 30, and then we'll get this one down to the beginning of our ruler. So by doing that, right now it's actually at 39 inches, which is a little bit too big. So if I Shift select this and then run auto size, I can type in 30 inches, and because it's laying the wrong way, I'll go ahead and straighten again, but this time I'll do it vertically and hit apply. And that way it will rotate it and resize it for me. If I wanted to check this line here, I'll switch back to freehand. If I wanted to check the joint, I could draw a line there along the joint, Shift select the piece again, run auto size, go back to 0, straighten horizontally and click OK, and then that would then rotate it so that the joint was straight. But those are some different uses for auto size.